Hello everybody and welcome back to our latest video. Today is a bit of a different one because it is a solo Glompy video. I will be ranting about a game that I love and a game series that I've come to kind of hate. And that is Dragon Age. Now, obviously the game in the series that I am a huge fan of is Dragon Age Origins. And I could argue that is probably one of, if not my favorite game ever made. And that's because of its writing, its world is so intriguing, and just the way the characters are done, I think works really well. But the series itself has seen quite a bit of a downgrade. From Dragon Age Origins to Dragon Age 2 to Dragon Age Inquisition, and now the dumpster fire piece of shit that's Dragon Age the Veilguard. So I'm just going to rant a bit about it and talk about the issues I have between them. Now, the biggest change, you could say, is the tone. Dragon Age Origins was dark fantasy. It was borderline horror in some segments. I mean, I look back at things in the deep roads like the Broodmother, or even minor quests that may seem slightly more comedic, but have a much darker undertone. Like if you look at Leliana's past, or anything like that. And I must also add the DLCs for the game are all pretty good. Even the one where you play as the Darkspawn killing everyone, it's still quite good. But then we started to see more of a shift that started in Dragon Age 2 with your main character Hawke, and it just downgraded from there. So we went from our dark fantasy, and Dragon Age 2 was still more along the lines of dark fantasy, but added more jokes here and there, and the story was very rushed. It wasn't as deep. Then you have Dragon Age Inquisition, which fully leaned into high fantasy. A friend of mine described it as a game that wanted to be an MMO, and I'm not sure if it was actually designed that way from the start, but it feels like it, because the game itself is massive. There's so many areas you can go to. It's far bigger than any of the previous games, but that's a bit of a detriment. It leans way too much towards high fantasy, and that darker tone is pretty much gone. There's still some things, but not as much. And then you have the Veilguard. The Veilguard just fully leans into the high fantasy, so like you might say like a YA novel in art. And it's terrible. It is the worst Dragon Age game. I mean, in fact, it's one of the worst games of 2024 completely, pardon my language. But it is just atrocious. Now, when it comes to the story, I can't do too much of an in-depth story critique on Veilguard because I actually didn't fully play through it, and I plan to never fully play through it. Compared to the other games, I mean, Inquisition I've played 2 or 3 times, Dragon Age 2 I've played a couple times, and Dragon Age Origins I've played like 30 times. I know that game inside and out. And that's the problem, you know, the modern games, they don't feel as fun to play through. Inquisition alone feels just like a slog to get through, especially with its writing. But it's nowhere near as fun as Origins. Now, I can't pretend Origins didn't have its problems when it first came out. It did. I mean, the game was buggy, certain things were cut. Even now, you can only play it if you install a 4 gig patch on your PC. But it was still a better game. It was so much darker and so much more complex. Now, when it comes to something like your companions, that's another issue I have with Inquisition, but I'll get to it. Origins had 10 different companions, but all of them were pretty deep, except for one. Shale, I think, isn't as interesting as the other companions, but the rest are quite good. Especially when you look at people like Alistair, Morrigan, Zevran. Dragon Age 2's companions weren't bad, but they weren't very special. And it's the same with Inquisition. If anything, Inquisition's companions are far too light-hearted, and I'm not a big fan of that. Even the one that ends up betraying you, which I won't spoil, but it still doesn't feel natural. And obviously Dragon Age Veilguard has the least companions, 7, but they're all romanceable because they're all pansexual. Another issue I have, because that's just not realistic. And if the game wanted, and don't give me that shit of, oh, it's fantasy, it doesn't have to be realistic. You still gotta have some things grounded in reality, especially in the reality of your own world. I mean, Dragon Age Origins had the diversity that Veilguard wants to go for. I mean, it had 2 bisexual companions that you could romance. You could even romance multiple companions at once, leading to a few very adult interactions. But Veilguard's companions are just shallow. They feel like they were written by an HR team. And that's the best way to describe it. And none of them embody that more than Tash. Now, Tash is a non-binary Kunari, which has problems of its own. If you know more about Origins and the original idea of the Kunari, you can tell that they're basically based off of Islam. So they're a very gender-specific culture. So for them to make this character non-binary doesn't quite fit. I know they did eventually retcon stuff into the lore about trans people being in the Kunari, but if you go back in Origins, there was no indication of that, and there was no intended indication of that until BioWare became more modern and progressive, which can be a good thing, but no in this case. Tasha's personality doesn't help because she is insufferable. One of the most irritating irritating characters. And you can tell even by her quest in which she comes out to her mother or tries to get accepted, you know? And again, using modern terms like non-binary in a game like this, it still doesn't fit. Her story was very written to be around her persona, which is never how you should write a character. I'll always give an advance. You don't write a gay character, you write a character who is gay. That sort of thing. And for her character to be written like that was terrible. Now, there is still another complaint I have, and that's the art style. The art style in the older games was more gritty. Obviously, for the time, I mean, Origins came out in 2009, so it was limited by graphical limitations, but it still had a very distinct style. And that style was slowly watered down as the games went by. I look at the Kunari as an example, because in Origins, yeah, they didn't look great, but that was because they were limited by the hardware. Dragon Age 2's Kunari looked a lot more grittier, darker, but by the time of Veilguard, the Kunari looked like, well, this. I'll show it on screen. And it's terrible. Who thought of this? And particularly Inquisition and Veilguard lean towards the more cartoony looks for everything. I mean, Veilguard looks like it was put through Fortnite. It does not look good. And it's not a game that I could recommend anyone ever playing. And the game flopped, so I'm not the only one who thinks this. If you ever wanted to play Dragon Age, I would suggest you go back to play Origins. Install the life improvement mods and the countless other mods and see how you enjoy the game. Maybe Dragon Age 2, but even then I can't exactly recommend it compared to the original. The original's just far better. And that's about all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment on your thoughts of the series, which is your favorite game in the series. I'm not saying you can't enjoy some of the later games, I'm just saying objectively that they are not good. And join our Discord to get more exclusive info on upcoming videos, or to even just ask us anything you want to know about the channel. And with all that, we'll see you all in the next video. Bye!